Hi, it's Stephanie. Thank you so much for listening to Unwritten today. I am so excited because we have Jessica Summers here as a guest. And not only is she an amazing human, she's an author, she's a speaker, and she's a change maker and just an overall ass kicker. And what I'm so excited about today with this podcast is because we are touching on a really important topic. And I'm not going to say where it's gonna go or how it's gonna go because I don't know, but thank you so much for being here, Jessica, and let's get started.
Thank you so much. And thanks for that introduction. Um, so let's get started and where to even start, really. So I have a book coming out, and that basically kind of tells my story and how I ended up doing what I'm doing now. And it also is why I am so passionate about it because I've been on both sides of things, meaning, once upon a time, I was married with children and I was a fashion designer and I owned a boutique. And on the outside, it looks like, oh, she's got it all. And so I wasn't really allowed to complain about anything. And so what I was trying to complain about is I had some complications after it was my last trimester in my second pregnancy. So I didn't do anything different, but I was in my doctor's office. It seemed like at the end was like every other week, and they were checking on my blood pressure because I had labile blood pressure. Excuse me, labile blood pressure. And then they were checking on fluids and then her heart rate. So on one of my last appointments, they were worried I was going to have a stroke because I guess my blood pressure was out of control. So it was like whip bam boom, we're going to induce, we're taking you across the street because my doctor's office was across the street from the hospital. So we go and it still takes forever. They induced. I had an epidural. It only took on one side of my body. And I mention these things because it's just it played tricks on me, always wondering what affects in utero before my child was even born, all the things that may or may not have happened to her, right? We expect you just have you give birth and the things that happen to people happen in life, but I think they happened before that. But that's for another story. So I end up I go home and I ended up having to come back to the emergency because I had like debilitating ab pains. So they found that they had left placenta behind. So that was basically, I mean, of course, I didn't see it at that time, but was the end, the beginning of the end for me because it was one infection after another, antibiotics, pain pills. Then they found I had like a hiatal hernia. I kept having ruptured ovarian cysts. And, I don't know when it really starts, but you kind of start questioning yourself someplace in there, like, wait a minute, I know how to take care of myself. What am I missing? But at the same time, you're still pushing forward. You're still, I have another child and, I'm a wife and I have a business and I'm trying to do the stuff, um, which I see now, like, this actually is why I do what I do because I see so many of us doing the same thing, pushing, striving more and more, and thinking that the more we push, that we will eventually just push ourselves through it. And it doesn't work that way, right? We are going to crash and burn. This leads me to my story. That's exactly, what happened. I didn't know. I mean, of course I didn't know what I didn't know, but when you're taught things in this world and you're doing them, but you keep like hitting a wall, you start to question yourself. You start to question the person you are, why you're doing the things that you're doing. And for myself, I'm very sensitive and intuitive. I didn't know, I didn't have the exact names for that then, but I was so well aware of me not being on top of my game, how it affected everybody else, which in turn would make me push even more. So I end up getting addicted to my doctor prescribed pain pills. And I have to preface, yes, back in the day in my 20s, if drugs were around, you know, if I felt like it, I would. If I didn't, I didn't. My point is there is a very big difference between making choices, whether they're good, bad, right, or wrong, and then there's addiction. And I had never been addicted before. And this is what I think it was such the biggest thing I had to learn in this is that the difference between addiction and a disease and choices, right? Because it was no longer my choice. I didn't understand how my body became habituated to it, but it also mimicked so many of the things that I had started off with to begin with, right? So I kept going to my doctor saying, I don't know what's going on. A, B, and C are happening. Never, not one time did my doctors ever say word one about addiction. It was not even part of the conversation. It ended up that I finally went to my husband and I said, I feel like I'm taking too much medication and I feel like just all these medications, I just keep, they make me feel worse. So I get more and then I feel a little bit okay. I stop taking the pain medication and then the pain comes back you know, like a bull charging at me. And so then I'm popping pills to try to fix me, right? All of a sudden, you're in this, you don't even know how you got where you got, but you are in a pit that, yeah, your common sense and logic, um, they don't even exist, but you don't understand. It's like you don't understand that you don't understand. You've been taught things, you've always been able to fix things, heal, whatever. I've always been able to, if that's not working, do something else or fix what isn't working, yada yada. So all of a sudden I'm in this place where I don't know how I got there. And I'm voicing this out loud, but it is, if you don't have an eyeball hanging out of your head, you basically it's what are you complaining about? You have everything that you want and need. And so I mean, I felt bad. I felt bad that I was complaining. I really thought that that's what I was doing after a while because I had heard that so much that I had completely lost myself in that I started like verbally abusing myself of no matter how bad I felt, I would tell myself to get my shit together, to get out of bed, to show up and do this and do that and get on the co-ed soccer field and softball field and dinner parties and you know all the stuff, to present the illusion that everything was okay. Because like I said, if you don't have an eyeball hanging out of your head, it's perceived as complaining. So fast forward, I complained about it over and over. I'm not being heard. I start going out at night because I had said too, I'm going to stop taking my medication because I don't know up from down. I don't know what side effects are from what. And in the response was always, you're not a doctor. Don't stop taking what you're prescribed. Really? Thank you for that. And just because there's a potential side effect doesn't mean you're going to have one. Well, okay, those are both like true statements. However, that doesn't mean that I don't have an opinion of my own, what I'm actually feeling, right? I mean, with a response like that, it's like, are you telling me that I don't even know how I feel about myself? That I'm right? So I'm in la la land after a while. I had to give up my boutique. Um, I just start. I mean, I'm giving up really. It's like 1 foot forward, slide 10 back, and then get up and go, oh yeah, I guess I need to get up and try again. Why am I doing this? Oh yeah, I'm married with children and I need to get up for them.
Can
I
I
mean, that
interrupt
was
you? I have one question before we keep going.
yeah,
You were voicing this to your doctor,
yeah.
and what was your doctor doing? Just prescribing you more meds, or I mean, what was happening in this situation?
Well, and so this is the part where it gets kind of yes to answer your question, and also, and this is where it got so confusing for me. So it started off with the um, bacterial like infection because of the placenta. So I eventually got to a point because was given so many antibiotics that I was given more antibiotics because I had an overgrowth of too much um, bacteria from too many antibiotics. So it just kind of kept going that way. And I mean, I was in pain every day. But the thing too, it's like I would just because you pick up the phone and say I need a doctor's appointment doesn't mean you're getting in that day. So in between doctor's appointments, I'm given more pain pills. I'm given antibiotics. I get a diagnosis. Like I said, I am like ruptured ovarian cysts. Like I had never experienced any of those. You know, what am I doing here? I had to have an ablation because I was like just have these heavy flows that I had never had before, like a hiatal hernia. Um, and then given medication that I was telling them I think I that medication makes my stomach worse. But I also, in retrospect, think that I went through at the same time postpartum that turned into, I feel like all of this kind of stirred up so much other unhealed, right? So it's almost like the physical and the mental health, like you don't even know which one you're getting help for anymore. Because I would eventually, I saw and I always forget which one is which, the talk therapy and then one that prescribes. And I went to a talk therapist and I had, told her what was going on. And she refers me to a prescribing doctor who gives me a prescription for Valium. I mean, right? So I'm already on all this stuff and I'm complaining about it. And I've even said, like, I feel like I'm taking too much pain medication. And then I go to another doctor and I'm prescribed Valium because of, yeah, the state that I'm in. I'm a freaking mess. But I just kept getting more pills. Um, More like another time I get diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And right. So where did that come from? What does that have to do with my stomach? Like, right? I don't even know. It's like, I understand that they have nothing to do with each other, but the state I was in, like, I didn't understand. Um, and when you're just given like medication on medication and you're not being like properly um, diagnosed, heard it, right? And I think too, I it got to a point where I had put a lot of, or I would say all of my faith and trust into the doctors, um, because I couldn't hear anymore. I was like, okay, just whatever you tell me is wrong with me, I'm gonna listen because I was so discouraged and lost. And but what do doctors know how to do? Like give you medication for the symptom,
Yeah.
right? So we never like did any like digging around, like, okay, how did this start? What happened? It, it was just like a perpetual new diagnosis. I mean, because I got diverticulitis, colitis, oh, lupus. I I got I I was told that I tested positive for lupus, but I didn't have it. Like, what does that mean? Um, so anyway, fast forward, I start going out at night. I'm about as pathetic as a human being can be. I am some what you see in the movies, like the girl at the end of the bar that is like a mess. That was me. And I'm just basically just want somebody to listen to my sob story, because no matter who I tell, nobody hears a word I'm saying. And I'm questioning my own sanity. I'm questioning the human being that I thought I was, because that person is nowhere near me. I don't exist. So I end up meeting a drug dealer, which I didn't know at the time was a drug dealer. We end up going back to a party, and everybody's pretty much doing drugs there. And he shoots me up with heroin. And I thought I've been saved.
Oh, wow.
I mean, not at that very moment, but I did feel like some initial, like, I don't have to go to the doctor. I can, I made up a story basically in my head to make it okay, because I actually did feel better. I wasn't running circles trying to go to doctors going, hey, somebody, anybody listen to me. I could pretend um that I was okay, because I wasn't the, again, like what you see in the movies and passing out and nodding out and all that. I did enough so I could function. I did enough so I could get out on the soccer field. We played indoor sub, and I'd go out to the side and I'd throw up and I'd come back and get out on the field. I mean, it was ridiculous, but I was so not going to give up, but didn't know. I was so far gone. I didn't know how or what where do you go when you're totally lost, and yeah, when you're that far gone, you make whatever you had or have in total desperation work. And I know
Yeah.
what that sounds like. you know, I, you know,
It's no, it's true. When you're that low and you're basically living off breadcrumbs, it's yeah, I mean, I'm getting emotional because I've been there, not in the sense of heroin, but how many of us have been there lying on the ground and just trying to still patch things up so you could look normal? Because heaven
yeah.
forbid, you know. So please keep going, but it's a beautiful, horrible state that you are in.
And what I don't even know, like, what the sad part is, but really eye opening part of it is I told on myself eventually, and I thought it was bad before. Ha, I didn't think it. No way in hell could it get any worse than it was, and it got 10 times worse before it got better. When I told on myself, um, in my mind, I assumed that yes, you saw it as complaining and you didn't want to hear it, yada, yada, yada. No matter how hard it is to hear this, eventually everyone will understand how I got here. Even though it doesn't make any sense, it's horrible, it's this, that, the other, it's all kinds of stuff. But we will all get to the same understanding and conclusion these things happened. This is where I'm at. The reason I am begging for help is because I'm begging for help, right? Because I've tried to do everything the supposed right way. And look where I ended up. So I'm right where I need to be, right? If I look where I'm at, I mean, this is about as bad as it can get. You hear me now, right? You hear that I need help.
But they
No.
didn't.
I mean, I ended up having a break and I went into a mental institution for 17 days where they misdiagnosed me bipolar. And then I was really swinging for the chandeliers because I was heavily medicated with antipsychotics and mood stabilizers. When I, every chance I got, I said, these are the things that happen to get me here. Nope. And the more, and I mean, I understand what it looks like. And so this is the response that I got, but it doesn't make it right. When you're in that position and you're saying, hey, the reason I'm behaving this way is because A, B, and C happened, and then you misdiagnosed me bipolar and put me on medication when I have a ton of drugs in my system. I haven't eaten, I haven't slept. I all of these things have happened. I need to rest, not be put on more medication. And in fact, are you ready for this one? They put me back on all the medication that I'd stopped taking once I started using heroin and stopped going to the doctor. One night, it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm walking circles, and the nurse's station or whatever it is, there's a lady behind the desk, doesn't ask me if I'm okay or what I need. Jessica, go to bed, go to bed. It's 2 o'clock or 3, whatever time it was. Go to bed. It's late. Go to bed. I can't. And I realize I'm rubbing my stomach and my stomach hurts, but I can't understand why my stomach hurts because hadn't I made all this stuff up? I thought I was a liar. I thought I was a liar that made up being sick so I could get drugs. Isn't that what everybody's telling me? That I'm a bipolar liar? Right? I mean, I don't know who to believe anymore. I'm terrified of everybody and everything that is coming out of anybody's mouth. So there I go, walking around circles. And finally, I dropped to my knees, and an ambulance had to pick me up from the mental institution to take me to the ER. And that's the time that they said was either diverticulitis or colitis. Are you ready? Guess what they give me?
I can guess. Why don't you tell us?
Antibiotics and pain pills.
Oh, so you're back on the cycle.
Yep. But nobody hears any of this. I mean, I'm kind of laughing about it. I'm like, this is exactly how this started. But
Yeah.
I mean, I sound like a crazy person, and
And you're
I
getting
get,
treated like a crazy person.
yes, which is
Mm.
when you have just like that little bit of sense of self left,
Yeah.
and you have to listen to people tell you who you are and what's wrong with you and what to take and when to go to bed and when to take a shower and when that is, I think right there is that's a moment in itself where it's a sink or swim. Like I I I question, I mean, I know that like God had my back big time because I don't know how um because it was like supernatural kind of help because it was so like I'm gonna ram my head up against the wall because I don't understand, even though I did understand. I
Yeah.
could see what like how obnoxious and ugly and how easy it was for other human beings to treat another human being just because of what we've been taught and what we think we know about mental health, mental illness, and addiction. As
Yeah.
soon as you get labeled that, you are less than. So I have the power to tell you who you are and what you need and what you need to do to fix you, the person with the problem.
Yeah.
And you wonder why people snap and go ape shit. You know? Um,
I think it's interesting too. We know so little about ourselves, but
yeah.
yet we have all these big pharmaceuticals pushing drugs down our throats. And for what? So they can make money without actually healing the problem. And the fact that you went through another cycle of it really just shows to me how far we have to go in our doctors and our healthcare system and mental health and physical health. It's just you weren't getting better. How many meds do you need to be on until you get better? Well, there's no such thing as getting better when you're on them. They're not supposed to make you better. They're supposed to
but
make companies money. But that's a whole
it,
nother tangent.
but that is so true. And that's another thing though too, is because of big pharma and what we've been taught and what we think we know about certain things, we laugh off things that we should be completely outraged
Yeah.
with and about, but we make light of it. I mean, when I think about it now, like I was like, please hear me. I'm going to stop taking this medication because I just don't understand. Don't stop taking what your doctor's giving you. Like that. I mean, talk about running off your subconscious and being, I mean, I see it now, like how blatant it is. Like either you wake up and make a decision that you are in charge of your choices and how you're going to live your life, or you are one of the sheep and you keep going, yep, I know the difference between right and wrong. And you just spit out words without even thinking about the consequences of your actions and your words or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
Because that's you thinking you're a good person doing the right thing because of the things you've been taught to believe and trust in without question.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, so let's move forward to your moment, your epiphany. You hit rock bottom. What was the what was the thing that I mean, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call it rock bottom because that's again, that's super judgmental. But what was the spark that got you to start your recovery process back to self? You're back to self-discovery.
So originally there so I had tried, so this is when so I'm on heroin. I had tried to to do some outpatient, but I still had the physical. I still had the physical. I had the mental. I had the spirit. Like I had everything against me. So just stopping doing drugs isn't shit. That just means that you're showing up for everybody else. Look, if I don't do drugs, everything's okay, right? It's like I had to do all of it if I was gonna do it. So, but I had to learn that too. That was part of my process, right? It's like stop trying to do and fix you according to everybody else's belief about who you are and what's wrong with you and what you need to fix. And I'm sitting at actually in the apartment where I originally, where this all had started. And so, like, my routine, I guess, was I would go. in the morning, I'd use there, and then I'd have enough to use throughout the day, and then for the next day. So I'm not paying attention, and I'm bawling my eyes out because the only thing that I've been thinking about is, okay, I've tried everything. I've tried it on my own. I've actually tried and asked for help. Like, I don't know what to do. And I'm going to tell my husband. That's it. I am going to say whatever I need to say so that I can get the help that I need. I'm going to tell him everything that I've been doing. Yes, great. That's what I'm going to do. I'm scared shitless because, I mean, at that time, I mean, it was spiritual warfare. It was like the devil in my ear laughing at me, saying, seriously, you're a joke. You are a piece of garbage. Why on earth would you think that anybody's going to hear you and help you? They didn't help you before. And so that's like going over and over and over in my head. So I without paying attention, I cooked it all up. And it's like simultaneously, I did it all and said, God, why would you want me to suffer so bad? And I heard him and felt him. Makes me emotional. Through my whole being, that he didn't. And I mean, right then and there was, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it, and everything's going to be okay. And I got up, and that shit should have killed me. And I got up and I walked out, and I never went back to that place again. I mean, it was still years and years, but that was the little bit of light and hope, because I didn't really recognize it so much that when I was in it, I'm not a religious person, but I've always had God in my life. I've always had a connection and an understanding of something bigger and outside of myself. But in that, I was so ashamed and embarrassed that I was hiding. I wasn't asking God for help. But when I said, why would you want me to suffer? Like, there was, I wish everybody could have an experience like this, where it's almost like a tap on the shoulder and you're like, okay, all right, let's do this. And you can, and you will, with that little bit of hope and that light, that it doesn't matter how dark it is. It's faith. Faith and surrendering to, I don't have to figure this out. I'm just going to take the steps to get there. And you do. And you eventually, I mean, I would still get in my own way.
Yeah, I mean, that's normal. We're
Yeah.
only human.
Yeah. But then again, though, I would always, I mean, it's like night and day now compared to when, if I get in my way now, I go, hello, what are you doing? Oh, yeah. And I can, get myself out of it. At that time, I mean, I still, wee, because my children, by this time too, my children are being told that, I don't think I mentioned, I got separation papers 3 days out of a mental institution. And my mother-in-law had started to pack my stuff up. And I came back to the house and was like, I mean, I'm walking around in eggshells because I don't trust a living being, no matter who they are. Just because of the experience, it wasn't necessarily those individuals necessarily themselves, but just as a as a whole, um, I just, I saw people in their darkness and so unaware of it too. Um, and plus I was totally unhealthy at the time too, so that just made it even worse. But I didn't trust anyone. And then coming home to see my stuff like packed up and then separation papers, I was like, what is, you know, and then my children are being told that I was a bipolar drug addict that had abandoned them. So I think that was another uh, big one that was like a kick in the face. It was like my head being held underwater and saying, "I'm drowning. Somebody please help me," and getting laughed in the face, saying, "You're not even in the water." You know, like, so everything is like so outrageous because nobody's hearing anything, and the things that are unfolding in front of you is just like not even real. So in that, you know, it's almost, when I think about it now, it's like maybe that's something too that helped me push into knowing that I was going to make it through it, because everything was just so outrageous in the real good world, you know, that I had myself to rely on, which was the opposite of what other people were doing. So I knew that I could start to trust and believe in that. That makes sense?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you start this recovery process, and it's really hard to do that alone. How did you find a support system of people so you can learn to heal?
Right. So, and this is huge. So I kept trying to do outpatient, and then I tried to go to the doctor, but I'm having at this time now, it's like my memory is shot. I can't remember um, things that I know I should remember, but I'm terrified to tell anybody that because nobody trusts or believes anything out of my mouth. Um, so I can't really share these things. But I would make doctor's appointments and I'd forget about them. I wasn't doing it intentionally. I mean, I told on myself in the very freaking beginning, like, you know, but by this time, it's like everything that I do is under scrutiny. It's like, you know, the under the looking glass, like every move I make is, I mean, I couldn't do anything right. So I basically would fail over and over, even though I would try to do some outpatient and do this here and do that there, because the one thing that I needed more than anything was some stability, a foundation to which to build upon a new life, to have some stable footing, right? When you're being yelled at and being told to get my shit together and all that, you know, it's like, and to show up, like the only way I could see my girls is if I showed up at a game in front of all these people that had actually yelled at me, like in front of my children. It's like, I mean, I was like panic attack after panic attack just so I could go see my girls. So I failed and failed. And I, and I think this was like divine intervention again. I am at this time, I'm kind of like in my car, sleeping in people's garages or couch surfing. I'm staying at one in particular person's house on their couch. And I'm grateful, but they're also doing drugs. So it's, you know, the only reason it's helpful is because I have a place that I don't have to be scared to sleep at night. But besides that, like I'm getting nowhere. And I find a scrap little piece of paper that I had been holding on to, and it was my mom. So my mom's in Germany, but she would come. She had flown over several times to kind of try to help me and be there for the girls. So it was a time before she had been there. So, but this is months later, and I find that number that she had given me, and it was a dual diagnosis facility. So I call the number, and thank God this guy on the other end, I mean, he knew his stuff. He knew the kind of weasel behavior of the addict and the addict mind of like, okay, wait, I got to get this all my ducks in a row. Like I can't do that until I do, it's just, it's irrational behavior and irrational thinking. That's why you need help to get the help you need. Like somebody telling you to get your shit together does nothing but hold them down even further. You need to help the person to get the help that they need. It's like somebody having a heart attack on the ground. Are you going to kick them and say, get your shit together and go to the hospital?
Right.
No. So I call, and he's asking me all these questions, and who knows what I'm saying, but he says, do you have somebody that can fly you out to us? And it was a place in Southern California. I said, no, no way. I'm not asking anybody for help. And then we talked some more, and I said, the only thing I can think of is my stepbrother. I think he flies a lot for business. Maybe he has some miles. Okay, yeah, I think that's as far as I'm going though. And it was like whip, whip, whip. I think it was like a day or two later. I'm getting pulled or picked up and taken to the airport, and I'm in Southern California. And this is what saved my life, because this is what I needed. I needed to be under watch, like under lock and key, and to be handheld, because, and this is why I kept getting in trouble before. So I start the program, and I still have that. And this is a thing where I kept crashing and burning too, because that initial diagnosis of being bipolar. I'm now in this facility, and all my records show up. So I get put back on a lot of the medication. And I'm there for, I don't know, less than a week. And I'm laying in bed, and I'm rocking back and forth, and I'm holding my stomach. And I had told one of the girls that was also part of, in the program, I said, I have these ongoing stomach issues, blah, 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 and kind of tell her, like a brief synopsis of my life story. And she goes to like the director or house manager, whatever, the person that kind of runs the house that we're staying at that time, and comes back and says, you're going to be fine. It's just part of the detox. And I said, no. I have been through detox. I don't know how many freaking times. I know detox. I know, and I went down the list of all the shit that I know for sure. And this is not detox. This is my stomach, and this is what happens every time I get put back on these medications. So nobody heard me. Nobody heard me. So finally, one of the girls got one of the staff to come in and took my temperature, and it was like 100 and something, and so that got their attention. So we go, oh God, this makes me sick too. We go to the ER, and I have a male doctor that knows I'm in recovery, because the people that I'm with are like, she's part of a recovery program. Do not put her on any kind of medications, blah blah blah. And again, I get to watch the mask, the flicking of the switch, where I'm no longer a human being. I'm given a female examination, and was told that it was probably a sexually transmitted disease, or sexually transmitted, not disease, but is it disease? Like some kind of sexually transmitted whatever. and sends me on my way with antibiotics, and does like a culture or something, and says, if we find anything else, we'll call you and let you know. So I start the antibiotics, and I'm in bed, and I'm curled up for a couple of days, and I'm crying and I'm rocking, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, nobody will hear me again. So they were understaffed, so they had finally had an ambulance come pick me up, and I go to ER, and they didn't have a place for me, so the ambulance basically takes me off the gurney thing and puts me in a wheelchair and sets me out in the emergency kind of waiting room. And I'm sitting there and I'm like sliding around because I can't stand the pain. And what finally got me back there is I'm basically like leaning over the arm of the wheelchair, and I'm throwing up like it looked like motor oil. It was like sludge. Um, so I go to the back, and it's a whole big old thing. I had I won't get into all of the stories, but this time I was there for a week, and it was pancreatitis. And so, but this is where what the difference was. The program that I was in had taken me out of the program, because you can't have me in two places at one time, right? So, and then while I was in the hospital, when I was done there, like a week later, they picked me back up and re-enrolled me into the program. And so Anne took me to a couple of different doctor's appointments. I mean, I was supposed to see a specialist and which couldn't happen, which was understandable. I was there for recovery, not to be chauffeured around to doctor's appointments. But this was the difference. There, I had staff. I was like, eat, sleep, breathe, recovery in every which way. You know, I'm going to classes and I'm learning about the brain and how the brain functions in like an addicted brain. I'm understanding mental health more. I'm reading books and educating myself more on what is what. Um, I still am on the medication that I shouldn't be on, and I would have two um, more mental health or mental hospital visits. But eventually, I got to the place where I started getting some footing, you know, some traction, some because I had some education, I had some understanding. Before, it was all based off stigma, other people's opinions, the lack in my own self-worth that I didn't even know that I didn't have. I mean, like people talking about like your inner child and self-love. I'm like, what the hell is this stuff? What does this mean? But the more you know, start to do the work and uncover things, like all the bad stuff that I had tried to push down. Well, once I started to release that, I started to release the things that I care about and the things that I love about myself that I didn't even know that I didn't before, because I had pushed it all down. You know, so I really I say this all the time. Don't be afraid to start pulling back the peeling back the layers, because once you pull those back, it is an awakening to who you are, and all the good, the bad, the ugly, like it'll all come up. But your light, your genius, who you are, who you were created to be, like all of it comes up with that. And so, you know, who cares about the other stuff? Because it's a whole new way of being, right? I don't have to be ashamed of all the things that I did, because I have an understanding of how I got there and how I won't get back there again. Because stopping the behavior is just stopping the behavior. If I didn't do the extreme in the drugs, I would have done the extreme in some other way, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just stopping doing drugs doesn't mean that you've healed the reason or the root cause to why the behavior existed.
Yeah.
And once you start understanding that, um, like I said, it's a whole new way of being, you know, things that I used to be afraid of, I might still, but nowhere near. I mean, I didn't get out of bed, even though I started to heal. There was you know, once I had to, like, I mean, all of this stuff happened, and then I had to go through a divorce, you know, I mean, it was like one thing after another, but the more I started to do, even it didn't matter how much more was coming at me because I kept going forward.
Yeah.
You know, it just made me stronger for the shit that was going to eventually come my way anyway. Because I knew I was going to have to go through a divorce. I knew I was going to have to go toe to toe to get, you know, custody 50-50 of my girls, which I did, you know, but I see that when I got up and I stood in that fear and did it anyway, it made it gave me what I needed for what was going to come. Right. Because just because you start to do the work doesn't mean it's like, bam, it's going to be done. It just
Right.
prepares you for the next step.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people that haven't gone through an experience that you've gone through, it's really easy to be like, oh, that's scary. I'm not going to do it. Or you must not have fear. Or how do you not have fear? And it's the opposite. It's you've stood in fear and you've faced it and you realize that that's just another step closer to where you want to be in life. It's just it's a step almost. The more you fear something, the more you need to face it and see what's on the other side.
Right. And
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, what I think the biggest disservice we do to ourselves is we look at the big, ugly monster instead of breaking it down into itty bitty steps. Because don't think I went head on to like, come on, like bring it on. No, it was like itty bitty baby steps until I could make bigger ones.
Yeah.
You know, it was like shaking just to get up to walk to the corner and back,
Yeah.
just to get up out of bed the next day and the next day was a huge accomplishment until I could do more, until I could do more. You have to start where you're at, no matter
Yeah.
where you're at.
Yeah. I like to say with my work, you just have to hit record. That's what gets me motivated to face my fear of being in front of the camera and creating content and everything because I'm always afraid what other people are going to say. And it's like, just hit record. And it's that first step,
Yeah,
or what, or is it brushing your teeth in the morning? Whatever that first step is, that's going to get you feeling like you're doing your purpose in life.
yeah,
That's what you got to do.
yeah.
And it's really scary at first. And it'll continue to be scary until the next thing comes along that's scary that you're being called to do.
Right. But I think, wouldn't you say though too that breaking it down and just stepping into that first, right? That we don't have, nowhere is it written or nowhere is it said that excuse me, that you've got to like bulldoze your way through fear to get to the other side. It's actually
Correct.
quite the opposite.
Yep.
Small, consistent steps will get you to where you want to go.
Yeah. So let's chat a little bit because we're running out of time here. How did you get from the space of being in recovery? You got a divorce, you have custody of your kids 50-50. Where are you now? Who's Jessica now? Because we went through the whole process of who you were, but who are you now?
Right. So the complete opposite of who I was or who I was trying so hard to hold on to, but who I've actually always been. And what I mean with that is deep down, we all are who we are and who we're supposed to be, but through the years and through the experience, right, we get the layers of mixed messaging and experiences that make us who we are, and how we could stay on autopilot until you choose to look at that. When I looked at that, all those really those scary things, I got rid of some of those. I faced some of the ugly things about myself that I didn't, but then with that, I also learned some of the things that I don't have to fear, the things that are my strengths and not my weaknesses, because I really did the work to get in alignment with who I am and my purpose and using my voice. I mean, I have been told you're so um, uh, sensitive, like you're too much, you're too this, you're too that. It's like, okay, what does all of that mean? It's like, yeah, you know why I'm sensitive? Because I see the bigger picture. I see things that other people can't. Like I said, I am the complete opposite of who I was, but I'm actually who I was always meant to be. I'm coming full circle, and I wish this for everybody. And this is what, again, what, like, why I do what I do and why I talk about this is we all have a higher version of ourselves. Once we get past the man-made crap that makes us who we are until we recognize it. And what I mean by that is our experiences, what we've learned. Sometimes we're totally unaware of that. And we don't know who we are until we decide to take a look at that. So, this is who I am now. I want to show as many people as I can that that fear is what is holding you back. It's not necessarily what you think it is. And to start making those steps, because we all, there's a difference between like entitlement, like um, I feel like I'm entitled to anything. I can behave however I want to, like a snot-nosed punk. No. Then there's entitlement in the sense that we are all entitled to live in alignment with who we are supposed to be and lead with our hearts and then our minds, because we show up as ourselves and the individual we were created to be. And when we do that, then we allow other people to do the same. There's no pointing the finger and comparison and competition, right? It's like we could change the world that way, actually, because we individually do whatever it is that we're supposed to do. And that doesn't mean you have to have the cure for cancer or something huge. It means you're the one in your family that stands up, that heals generational trauma because you decided to heal yourself. Like, that's huge, right? Stop doing the same thing that you've always done so you can change, right? Because we're going to keep doing the same thing if we keep doing the same thing. So it's time to like look fear in the face and say, one step at a time, I'm going to choose to do that, to make my individual change that I can, because we're all capable of it. We've been just, it's been learned and taught that we can't. That's outside of our reach, which is nonsense.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
That you should take some meds, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Um, okay, so how can my listeners find you and follow along on your journey? Because I know you have a book coming out real soon, and I just think you have such an amazing, powerful story that I can't wait to share it with my listeners.
Well, thank you for that. So my website is www.jessica-summers.com. And I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, but on my face or on my website, you can book a free 30-minute if you like. And that doesn't even mean that we have to work together, but it does mean that in that 30 minutes, I guarantee we make a shift. I will hear something that you don't hear yourself. So do yourself that favor, actually. Book
Yeah,
a
I might
call.
do it myself.
Yes, come on.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.